I never imagined that high society events could hide such grotesque secrets behind glistening smiles and sparkling champagne. Yet there I was, navigating a labyrinth of opulent ballrooms and clandestine chambers, as I pursued a killer who transformed luxury into a macabre theater of bodily horror. My name is Elena Marquez, and this is my descent into the heart of the Corporeal Masquerade. I first encountered the madness on a crisp autumn evening. The invitation had been as rare as it was curious. A black, embossed card sealed with an unfamiliar insignia. Curiosity, mingled with a detective's relentless pursuit of truth, compelled me to attend.
Entering the grand estate, I was struck by the surreal atmosphere. The interior was adorned with lavish decorations, haunting classical music wafting from unseen corners, and a pervasive air of tension that belied the ostentatious festivity. From the outset, I sensed that something was terribly off. The guests smiled with tight-lipped precision, their laughter a brittle echo in the lavish hall. I mingled carefully, scrutinizing each face behind their ornate masks. Throughout the night, whispers reached me, rumors of a masked figure who appeared only when the lights dimmed, a figure rumored to be both artist and executioner. The whispers were dismissed by many as mere urban legend, but I knew that legends often have their roots in a disturbing reality. I began my investigation discreetly. Over several weeks, I infiltrated circles that blurred the line between avant-garde performance and criminal experimentation. The killer's signature was chillingly consistent, an invitation to a performance that was both mesmerizing and horrifying. At these gatherings, the victim, chosen at random or as a deliberate statement, was subjected to a series of grotesque experimental procedures. Witnesses later described sensations that defied logic, a deliberate manipulation of their sense of self, almost as if their very flesh was being rewritten. It wasn't just murder, it was a perverse reimagining of the human body as a canvas for terror. One particularly harrowing performance still haunts my dreams. I had managed to secure a hidden vantage point in a crumbling annex of an abandoned mansion, repurposed for these nightmarish exhibitions. The room was dimly lit, with candles casting tremulous shadows on walls scarred by ancient inscriptions and modern graffiti, a twisted combination of art and anatomy. There, beneath a blood-red velvet drape, the masked killer carried out his latest act. His movements were theatrical, methodically slow, almost ritualistic. With tools I can barely describe without shuddering at the memory, he transformed his victim in a way that rendered the process less a murder and more a morbid performance art. The victim's contortions, the eerie precision of each surgical incision, and the careful orchestration of sensory deprivation created an atmosphere of unbearable dread. I felt my heart pounding in my ears as I recorded every detail on my hidden camera. In that moment, I questioned whether my own skin might one day be re-scripted by such a fiend. I later discovered that the killer's methods were not rooted in random insanity but appeared to be part of a larger, chilling experiment, one that explored the deepest intersections between physiological function and psychological manipulation. As I delved deeper into his world, I unearthed unsettling connections. The man behind the mask was no mere sadist. He was a former surgeon whose reputation had been marred by unethical experiments in the name of artistic exploration. His fall from grace had been swift, and in his descent, he had acquired access to secret technology, experimental devices that could send shockwaves through the nervous system, rewriting the way the human body perceived pain, pleasure, and even identity. Every new clue led me to an elite underground network. The masquerade was not a solitary performance, but a series of orchestrated acts supported by a cabal of wealthy patrons who regarded these exhibitions as the pinnacle of avant-garde entertainment. They sought to transcend the physical limitations of their bodies through dangerous, unregulated scientific breakthroughs, all under the guise of art. Their complicity made the network nearly untouchable, hidden behind layers of money, influence, and status. I realized that to bring down the killer and his cronies, I had to strip away the masks they wore, both literally and figuratively. The confrontation came on another eerie night. a gala held in an abandoned opera house on the edge of the city. Cloaked figures, draped in extravagant costumes, converged in a space that mingled decaying grandeur with modern decadence. I had managed to infiltrate the event undercover, my heart racing as I navigated corridors that resonated with ghostly echoes of forgotten performances. I knew that behind one of the ornate curtains lay the next performance, the next act in the Killer's cruel series. I slipped away from the crowd, following a series of whispered instructions from a remorseful insider.
The backstage area was a dimly lit maze of corridors and closed doors. As I rounded a corner, I came face to face with him, the masked figure whose presence had haunted every step of my investigation. His eyes, barely visible through the slits of his mask, held an unsettling intensity. There was a calm brutality to him, as though he were an actor in a role that only the darkest corners of humanity could conceive. Our confrontation was brief and shattering. He spoke in a voice that was both soft and chilling, explaining that his work was not born solely from malevolence, but from a desire to unmask the frailty and impermanence of the human condition.
His words, though delivered with poetic elegance, carried the weight of irrevocable horror. In that moment of tense dialogue, I felt a profound estrangement from my own body, from the humanity I sought so diligently to protect. The climax was a blur of motion, a struggle in the corridors of an old opera house, the clash of my determination against his warped brilliance. I fought through disorientation and pain, the force of his attacks mingling with the burning realization that this was more than a physical confrontation. It was a struggle for identity, for control over one's flesh and destiny. In the final moments, as I subdued him and awaited the arrival of backup, I knew that I had unmasked not only a killer, but also the dark underbelly of those who see the human body as nothing more than a malleable object, subject to their whims. The trial that followed was as theatrical as his crimes. In court, the macabre performances were replayed in testimonies and multimedia exhibits, exposing the sinister dance between art and horror in our modern age. I stood at the front, not as a mere witness, but as someone who had journeyed into the abyss to secure a sliver of humanity. Though the masked killer was convicted, his ideas, and the network that had enabled his atrocities, continued to simmer beneath society's polished surface. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself glancing in the mirror, and for a split second I wonder, who among us is not at risk of losing our true selves behind a mask? The memory of that masquerade remains an indelible scar on my soul, a reminder that beneath even the most refined veneer lies the potential for monstrous transformation. And I know that vigilance is the price of freedom in a world where the human body can be rewritten like a grotesque script, hidden behind the allure of a masquerade.